Hey everyone, how y'all doing? So I'm uploading this video for two reasons. For one, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna upload this before July 2nd. And on July 2nd, there's this thing that we're planning where we're supposed to just in general talk about stop killing games on Twitter using the hashtag stop killing games, which is essentially to make this campaign trend on Twitter, and hopefully it'll kind of boost its reach and end up reaching out to more people, get this thing trending, hopefully more signatures. And I think it's a pretty good idea. We have actually been growing quite a bit in signatures, so there might have been a time when I had a much more doomerous mentality. I mean, to be honest, ever since the very beginning, when I saw that the EU initiative required 1 million signatures, like I saw that and I thought, damn, I do not have the highest hope for this. And then the campaign started to like dwindle in popularity for reasons that we've discussed in previous videos. I don't want to bring that drama up again because honestly, what's done is done. But yeah, like after a while, the Stop Killing Games EU initiative trend started to like dwindle a lot, but it's kind of been getting back on track. And at this rate, it is actually possible to get 1 million signatures, but we do have to put into some work into maintaining the momentum because it can eventually slide. And so I'm gonna do my best to spread this around because it is something that's very important to me. But regardless, I also wanted to talk a little bit about physical versus digital because I know I've always liked to make that distinction, but I think I'm pretty sure I've also made it clear in several videos that at the end of the day, there isn't any real distinction between what we call physical media and also what we call digital media. And I mean in the sense that most physical media out there has some form of digital media. Like discs, for example, there are optical discs that have digital data in it. Same is true for, well, I guess I did say Blu-rays, but the same is true for like cartridges and other forms. Like just, honestly, most forms, unless we're talking about like pure like handmade, not necessarily handmade, but pure like non-digital media like books, for example. I'd say that when it comes to video games, film, and music, we are technically speaking consuming digital media. I guess a lot of the times when we're saying physical versus digital, it's more so in terms of how it's being distributed because what we call physical media is essentially digital media that is being distributed in a physical, tangible form that you can actually grab, lick, sell, and fuck, I don't know, play around with it, throw it to the wall, whatever. Meanwhile, digital media is intangible. It's on the internet. It's hosted on the internet. It depends on servers, and the problem with things that depend on servers is that servers don't run forever, and eventually they can get shut down, and then your only method of authenticating that digital media disappears and stuff like that. Regardless, my thing is, I would be a lot more in favor of what we consider digital media if I guess there was a more concentrated effort to eventually kill off that dependence on maintaining servers because until that actually becomes standard practice, at least on consoles, I don't think there's good reason to buy digital games. There's just no reason. I think it's just a bad fucking idea to do that. You should always buy physical media. I will say though that I do have a different stance when it comes to PC, and it's for two reasons. For one, if you go back to the 2000s, maybe even early 2010s, PC has never had good physical. Well, actually, I don't know if I believe that anymore. Because I actually recently bought one of the older Hitmans. I think it's Hitman Blood Money, and I was actually able to install that just fine. Bear in mind, I installed this on Linux. It wasn't even on Windows, the actual supported operating system. It was on Linux. I just used Lutris, and I installed it directly from the disk. It worked, and weirdly enough, when I removed the disk, I could still boot the game up. That was interesting. So that's definitely what I would consider a good physical release. It did seem to have some middleware software though, but I don't know. Maybe I'll discuss that on a different day, or maybe I won't, because honestly, that physical copy of Hitman Blood Money was mostly just for aesthetic. Because I do have the game on GOG, which I'll get into GOG in a minute. But yeah, like when it comes to PC, I don't think we've ever had a good era of physical media, because a lot of the concerns that we have for digital games, they kind of apply to physical games on PC. Because see, the thing about PC versus console is that PC has something that simultaneously makes it a really fucking great platform for playing video games, and also a really toxic platform for playing video games. See, the positive side is that compared to consoles, you have much more open access to game files. Like PC in general, even Windows, I've over the years I've talked about Linux and stuff like that. I forget Linux, even just Windows. Windows is a relatively open operating system. Like we're not talking about like a super fucking lockdown operating system. There's a lot you can do there. You can access a lot of files. Now, granted, I have heard that at least with games that come from the Microsoft Store, or at the very least games that are from Game Pass, it seems like they're stored in like really, 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 really hidden folders that are not easy to access or decrypt. But I'll ignore that for a second. If you're buying a game on Steam, you can access the game files. It's not that fucking difficult to do. Now, granted, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to easily modify the game files, because games can have different types of encryptions, different methods of formatting the overall files in the game. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have an easy time modifying it. But eventually people do end up modding games. And so it's a very open platform, which consoles are not. Like they're severely locked down, like in terms of how much you can do. Like you pretty much have to jailbreak that before you can get any semblance of like openness and control over it. And so that does kind of make PC very appealing, but it's also what kind of makes PC a much more, I guess, in the eyes of the developers, a much more antagonistic platform. Because at the end of the day, developers are not going to stop selling games on PC because there's a huge market for it. But at the same time, they're going to be a lot more protective. They're going to add a lot more condoms. They'll add things like DRM. They'll add things like key checks and stuff like that. Things that you typically wouldn't find on consoles, because with consoles, since they're so locked down, they have much more they have much more trust in the consumers, because there's really not a lot that they can actually do on a console to do anything that they wouldn't want, like piracy and whatever. But on PC, it's a lot easier to do that. So that's why they tend to add extra protections, which I can somewhat understand, but it does fucking bother me when some of those protections involve DRMs like de novo that ends up fucking over some things on my computer that I don't like. Especially anti-cheat. Like that shit really drives me insane. So, even though it is something that I somewhat accept, I don't like some of the side effects of using a lot of that software, these Enter-Temperament software, but I digress. And so yeah, a lot of that anti-circumvention methods, they also apply with physical disks. Like a lot of them, they did have DRM. They had really invasive DRM. In some cases you had to activate with serial keys, even if the disk had the game data, you still had to activate using serial keys, because they didn't want you to install the same game in multiple computers. It was fucking annoying. It was an annoying time to buy games on PC. And that's why, in general, I would say that I don't think it really matters to maintain the hobby of physical discs on PC, even though I do personally really like collecting physical media, because it is a hobby of mine. I like doing it. I like having a shelf in my room filled with all of the games that I've ever bought. I don't have that feeling when I buy things digitally. I don't have a feeling that, hey, this is like my legacy. I mean, sure, I guess if I fucking show off like my Steam account to someone, which I guess it's its own way of showing your legacy. But I think it hits different when there's like an entire shelf of all of the games you've ever bought. And so, a part of me does hurt that I can't do that with PC. But at the same time, I do think that in terms of general ownership of games, I don't think it really matters if you're buying things physically or digitally, because I feel like you're gonna end up going through a lot of the same bullshit that you would regardless. In fact, in a lot of ways, I might actually prefer buying things digitally, because at least I don't have to deal with. I think I remember there was this one Ring Zero DRM that used to. I don't remember the name, but it was basically this like fucking DRM software that was in a lot of physical discs for PC games at the time, and it got to the point where it would sometimes basically, if you had a PC that had two different not Blu-ray, DVD drives, sometimes it would just get confused where you would put the disc in one drive, but it would somehow try to read the other drive, and it would get really confused, and you would swap it out and the same problem happened. It was just a fucking mess. Like, I feel like you don't have to deal a lot of that stupid dumb shit when you're buying things digitally. And so even in terms of just the overall user experience, I think it's better off just buying things digitally on Steam or whatever, Epic Games. But obviously, when you buy games off of an online store, you do have to confront the fact that you don't actually own them. And for the record, I'm talking about ownership. I understand that with a lot of games you can pirate them, but at the end of the day, piracy is not owning games. You granted, that's not me discouraging you from pirating games. If you want to pirate games because you feel like that's the only way that you can guarantee that you'll be able to play that game for years to come, like if that's your method of preserving games, I'm not gonna fucking stop you from doing that. But to me, I consider ownership something that you have from a legal viewpoint. Like, you're a proprietor of something that you bought. When you obtain something illegally, I don't think you really have that class. Certainly not legally. And so, again, not trying to discourage people from pirating games. I just think I think that's a little bit different from actually owning games. And so, yeah, you do have to confront the fact that you basically don't own your games. But I don't think you would be owning your games anyway if you're buying things physically. So, whatever. But then there's GOG, which I guess is what's open here. Though then again, it is sharing libraries with Epic and and GOG. But like, GOG is nice because the whole premise of GOG is that it has no DRM. You can buy games, install them. It'll not ask you to authenticate with your GOG account or anything like that. There's no fucking middleware DRM like Denuvo or stuff like that. It is completely DRM free. You can grab those game files, install, copy to any fucking computer. Not saying you should do that, but you can pretty much copy that anywhere and you'll be able to play just fine. And to me, that is the ideal world, but I understand that that's not necessarily what game developers always want. My compromise is something that I've always kind of said to myself is that, I definitely understand if, especially AAA developers, if they don't want to release their games day one on GOG. I get it. They're trying to protect sales. They're trying to prevent people from easily pirating it. I can understand that part. But maybe after a certain time, because at the end of the day, game sales, they do peak. Like, typically, especially with a lot of AAA games, they tend to get their best sales during like the first couple of weeks. And so a part of me wonders that maybe after like a year, 2 years, hell, even 3 years, I'd be willing to accept. Maybe after a certain time, you might want to re-release the game again on GOG without any DRM, or just remove even the Steam account DRM on the Steam listing on the Steam store, something like that. So if they'd be willing to do that, because especially because by that point the game's probably already cracked anyway, and so maybe after a certain point, video game developers, they might want to consider just releasing a DRM free version of the game, because at least me personally, I have no problems with repurchasing the game again if it's DRM free. Like, it was like about a week or two ago, I bought, where is it? Yeah, there you go. I bought Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition. I bought the Devil May Cry HD collection. Both of these games on GOG. I already had these games on Steam. In fact, I'd already played these games on PlayStation, but I bought them again on GOG because I wanted to have a DRM free version of these games. And so, me personally, I think that this is a business model that I would appreciate if more developers went with. Release the game, you know, after its peak its sales, we release it again on GOG. I'm okay with them not releasing day one on GOG because I understand they're trying to protect their sales, but maybe after a while they can do that. And yeah, hopefully that does become the standard. Like, it does seem like the people behind GOG, they have actually been, because I think initially GOG was pretty much just a retro, it was pretty much just a store for retro games, but recently they have actually been getting more and more deals for modern games. Like, I think I vaguely remember seeing the Silent Hill 2 remake on GOG. So it does seem like they're getting like pretty awesome deals with game publishers to actually release their games there. They're finding a way to convince them, and so I hope this trend continues because look, I'm just gonna tell you right now, if every single fucking game that I liked was on GOG, I might even consider not feeling, at least not as much of a need to collect physical media as I feel now, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of the issues I have would kind of disappear. But I don't know, that's just a train of thought. Remember, hashtag stop killing games, check out the EU initiative and also the UK petition. Love you all, bye bye.